Hi, my name's NekaychaCavil, and I am the founder and creative director of CashApp. Today we're going to talk about modesty and the true meaning of modesty. If you give me 1 second, I just need to make sure I share this on my own personal feed. And we'll get right on into the teaching. So let's see. Okay, so now that I shared that, so I just want to give an introduction into some of the new things that you'll see on CashApp. So CashApp has been around since 2019. That's when I first started the brand, up until now. And so I've been diligently working on the back end. I did acquire some funding, so you'll see that on the page, on this Facebook page as well. We are paying back that loan, and we've used that loan in various ways to kind of move CashApp forward. With a fashion brand, you'll see different fashion brands emerge, and they all have their own logistical ways of emerging, whether it's through buying clothes that are already kind of sold through manufacturer, whether you are manufacturing the clothes yourselves, whether you're selling vintage. So there's so many ways on how you can really bring about a fashion brand. But for CashApp, it is really important that we are in not only the design process of creating the garments, but then also in the manufacturing. And so yes, we might have someone else that will manufacture our clothes. However, we will monitor that process closely, and that's still developing, right? Because I'm here and I want to build this for sustainability. And so for me, sustainability looks like long term. It looks like for generations to come. And so I am taking my time and being diligent about the process and how things are being implemented when it comes to really the art of garment making. And so that's why you haven't really seen clothes yet. We do have a prototype for our little black dress. However, I am working through the corrections and things to really make that part of what the vision, how I see it is. And so yeah, that's coming. But I did take a break last year from the business, which was really hard to do. However, it was so needed, because before then, the past 4 to 5 years, I have just been in fashion school, and when I wasn't in class, working on, again, because the fashion brand is a separate part. You still have to run the business of like the logistics of running a business. And so there's so many like things to think about in that. And so that's what I was truly focusing on. However, I did take a break last year, all of last year, and it was really hard to walk away, but I needed the clarity. And so now I have clarity on like how to move forward and the steps to take to move forward. And so this is what this introduction of teaching is. I will be teaching every Wednesday, so you can tune in here live, or you can also refer to the YouTube page that will also be linked in the description. I'll add that after the live, where you can tune into our weekly teaching. It will be on Wednesdays. I don't have a set time right now. However, you can count on a weekly teaching on Wednesdays. And so what the vision going forward for CashApp is really talking about modesty and what it really means, and like how God really intended for it to be, and not what society has shaped and molded it to be. It is not something that's meant to imprison, make you feel like you have no rights. It's not something that's supposed to govern your bodies in a way that brings harm and or insecurities within yourself. Like, that's just not what it is. And society has really made modesty very unattractive, very a topic, and even just something that people hate, right? And so for CashApp, our goal is to redefine modesty and what it really is and what it was created to be. And so these weekly teachings will not only just teach on modesty, it's going to teach on everything surrounding modesty, the socialization of modesty and what that has transformed into. And then also, it will also talk about different things within fashion. And so different topics that relate to fashion, but that also relate to life, because everything that goes on in this world, it's all connected. And that sometimes I don't think that we put the pieces together to see how something in one industry or one side of the world still impacts us on this side of the world. And so we'll also be teaching about different things. And so ultimately, this is going to be like a revelation, like revealing truth, so that you can then decide if modesty is something that you resonate with, if even just the way of life and how you're living life and doing life is something that you resonate with or something that you'd like to change. So tune in every Wednesday for a teaching, but today we're going to teach on modesty in its true meaning. So I did some research, because one night the Holy Spirit told me what modesty was, right? And then I also did research to figure out what are the top views of what people think modesty is. So you think about philosophers, scientists, all of these esteemed people, right? They have a form of what they feel modesty is. And so I'm going to go over and address and kind of tell you what those views are and how they formed their philosophical opinions around it. And then I'm going to tell you who the main source, God, what his view on modesty is and why he created it and what he created it for. Also, later on in this channel, in the month or even next month, I have a series that we're going to start called the Origin series. And that really takes you on a deep dive back in time to where modesty began, and then it's kind of like a timeline of events, and it's going to show you how modesty has transformed throughout the centuries and the decades. And so that's also a series that will dive really deep into modesty. This is kind of just going to give you the overview and the true meaning of what it is. Okay, so for my first source, so for the first outside source that I used, hey Catherine, good to see you. I found a quote. It was from Crisis Magazine, and it was an article called "Indecent Dress Isn't Solely Defined by the Amount of Skin." The quote said, "Indecent dress isn't solely defined by the amount of skin shown. It's also represented in the blatant disregard for self and surroundings." So that was one of the quotes that I found in Crisis Magazine article that I was doing some research about just the opinions around modesty. Another source that I found, I'm going to reference this one. This is for Psychology Today. So it's an online kind of magazine that has different articles around psychology and all those things. And so they had some really good articles surrounding modesty, right? And so philosophers, right? The philosophers of the world, right? That people deem and want their opinions around different topics and views. So a philosopher's perspective on modesty is this. Philosophers typically believe that the virtues such as courage and kindness are involving of being aware of the actions, which is then virtuous. So through my research, it shows that all philosophers deem modesty as a virtue. And so in this quote is telling you that all virtues involve a level of being aware of not only your actions, but of yourself. Another philosopher, her name is Julia Driver. She had said in one of the articles, The Virtues of Ignorance, that's her article, so you can read up on this article, She argues that modesty seems to require a certain degree of ignorance. She points out that a statement where someone says, well, I'm modest, seems to be contradictory, for claiming to be modest itself is immodest. So she's pretty much saying, like, if you have to say, like, well, I'm modest and I believe in modesty, it contradicts your statement of saying that you are modest, because you should have more of a self-awareness of not deeming your modesty as being higher above anyone else. That's pretty much what she's saying. So she's saying that modesty is a unique virtue among all the other virtues like courage, kindness, things like that. And that it demands that modest person to almost underestimate her or his self-worth. So it's like almost you're having to show up in a way to the world where it's like you kind of not only underestimate, but like, what is the word? Like, you know how you kind of like downplay? Like, that's pretty much what she's saying. Like, she believes that, and this is one of the philosophers, her name is Julia Driver. She believes that to be modest, or to embody the form of modesty, you almost have to downplay that you're modest and downplay your self-worth, because then to show up as that is contradictory to what you claim. So that's one philosopher, right? And I'm not going to really give like an opinion because I have opinions, but I am going to say that I definitely disagree with that. But again, we'll dive into that, and I'll actually have other teachings where we'll really dive into why I severely disagree, and then also like what the Holy Spirit has revealed. So a second philosopher, her name's Irene McMillan. She also had an article in Philosophy Today, and so I read through that briefly. But this is her opinion towards modesty. So she says modesty involves an accurate assessment of one's worth combined with sensitivity to the feelings of others. So it prevents you from talking about yourself too much, or talking about yourself in a way that exalts yourself higher than others. She also argues that on previous accounts of modesty, where you have to kind of almost ignore or disregard the aspect of modesty. So this is a quote from, she also wrote a book on it. And so I'm interested to read her book to know like more about just how she dives into it, because like the articles were pretty long and they did have linked to some books that I would love to read just to have more information and to be able to really form an opinion and a perspective of understanding their perspective. So her quote says, a fundamental characteristic of modesty is the fact that it's not simply a self-regarding attitude. It is instead a profoundly other-regarding stance. So though it involves a heightened mode of self-awareness, it is a type of self-awareness which is accessible to me only through, one, recognition of how I'm being experienced in the eyes of others, and B, a desire to alleviate any suffering that this may cause. So I think that's an interesting perspective to have. Again, there's some things I agree and disagree with, but I can kind of see like what she's saying, and allowing yourself to still be self-aware, but in that self-awareness of who you are, being able to then also gauge, because I'm self-aware and because this is who I claim that I am and I'm showing that I am, that I have to also recognize that through the experience in the eyes of others, they're going to experience me in a different way than what I think that they should experience me based on who I say I am, because of this is what I claim. So just to bring that to perspective, that's what she's saying. Now, the last perspective is called an egalitarianism perspective. And so this recognizes the inherent quality of people. And so for egalitarianism, it's used in political philosophy. So it kind of describes where societies strive for equality. And equality that could be income, wealth, resources, and so forth. So it's just really just like a space for equality. And so with this perspective, In regards to modesty, it kind of here holds the perspective that each person is equally worthy of respect, and based on their intrinsic worth and dignity. And that this kind of provides the foundation for how most liberal societies are today. So if you kind of live around people or live in states or countries that have more liberal perspectives, this is kind of like what they view and like the philosophy in which they have in liberal societies. So this view and perspective is really the realization that equal worth is for all people. And so this doesn't impact the differences in achievements or talents. So the example that they gave is because someone's wealthy or successful, they might be brilliant, they might be beautiful, they might have all the things, right? That doesn't make him or her better than the next person. And that merely, they're better in superficial ways, right? But that where they're better in, so how that person might be beautiful or how that person might be wealthy or how that person might be successful is unrelated to the intrinsic worth of who that person is. And then that also doesn't impact the people around them. So it's pretty much just saying that from this perspective of modesty, it's like, okay, I might be successful, right? You might be very beautiful. Another person might be very esteemed, very accomplished. Another person might have a very high position or in government or politics or something on a national or global scale, right? All those things are great, right? They're kind of also superficial in a way. However, all of those things of like what you do, who you are, and how you have been esteemed doesn't relate to the intrinsic worth of who you are, nor does it really, nor should it have an impact or really any relativity to people around you. So that's what they're saying. So I'm just taking their professional jargon and translating it so you guys can understand. And then two of the bloggers that were specifically talking about this egalitarian view of modesty, one of them quoted in saying, "The modest person indeed keeps his qualities in perspective, and not the sense of believing that they are nothing special, but rather in keeping a clear distinction between their superior qualities and achievements on one hand, and then their also moral status with regard to other human beings on the other." So they're pretty much just saying like it's an equal balance. So it goes back into the egalitarianism view is the viewpoint for liberal societies. And so in liberal societies, they view equality as like the full lens, right? And so with this view and perspective on modesty, it's saying, okay, yeah, so on one hand you're successful, you got it going on. I mean, you got the shoes, the car, the house, the dog, the fence, right? However, you're aware of that. You're there's a sense of I want to say pride, but yeah, there's like a sense of because yes, you're esteemed in that way. So that's on one hand. However, they're saying that this person from this viewpoint should still have not only awareness of how they live within this esteemed position amongst other people, but then also knowing that what they have and what they do does not equate to their morality status and their status. And I think sometimes we try to intermingle morality and we pick and choose. We have selective morality on what we think should fall within a moral code and status, and what we think other things should kind of just walk the fine line. So it's just saying like, let's not walk the fine line here. You know what I mean? What you have superficially, like you still have a moral code. There's still a moral status that you have to not only abide by and that you should have, but then also that like your life is regulated by. That's what his perspective is. So the last blogger, his name was Daniel Statman. Now this guy, I shouldn't say this guy. The next blogger, his name is Ben Zeev, and he stated through this same view and perspective of egalitarianism, of modesty, is that modesty thus requires a realization of the fundamentally similar worth of all human beings. And the evaluation of this similarity is more significant than the differences resulting from their accomplishments of different human beings. So he's pretty much saying the same thing as like, fundamentally, everyone's equal, everyone's worthy of respect, everyone is worthy, everyone has worth. So that's the mold in which this view and how you should view modesty. And that if there's anything that is different between everyone that is deemed as equal because you're human beings, whether that be accomplishments, whether that be other superficial things that we might put on a pedestal, none of that matters. So I thought that was very interesting, reading some of these philosophers' perspective on modesty, because, yeah, I think sometimes you have to know like what other views are out there and to see if you align with it, to see like where the markers are placed, because a lot of these people deem and deem their opinions and like their research and what they've studied as, you know, as word. Like, and so, yeah, it's interesting reading philosophers' perspective on modesty. And then the last source I had before I get to like the good part, the best source ever, was a quote. And this was from, I don't know how to say this, but the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, I believe it's a church. And I was reading some of the blogs and I came across this one. But the quote says that modesty protects the mystery of persons and their love, right? It encourages patience and moderation in a loving relationship. It encourages one's choice of clothing. It keeps silence or reserve of where there is evidence of risk of unhealthy curiosity, and it's also discreet. And so with this, to give more context with this specific blog, it really focused on modesty from a perspective of like self-control, sexual behavior, relationships, and like how modesty plays a role in those. And it was talking even in regards to like how the world views modesty, how perversion and just everything's so perverse, everything's so overly sexual, right? Nowadays, you can't even like, I don't know, you can't just do normal things that you could do. Like even as kids, sometimes I'll see like the cute videos of kids on social media, and they'll just be doing things that like kids do, like that we did when we were younger, right? But now like when you don't read the comments, but if you do read the comments, you'll see like people, like adults, sexualizing kids in a way, and like, or just the behavior of the child. And it's like, that child is so innocent, they really don't even know what they're doing. They're just, you know. And so this is what this specific article or blog was talking about, and relates to their perspective of modesty and how it relates to the sectionalities of relationships, sexual behavior, sinful behavior, things like that. And so, excuse me, to give you an overview, and this is coming directly, all of the quotes and everything that I read so far is coming directly from these sites. So I'll make sure that I cite them because I do not want to have any copyright. No plagiarism over here. But their overview says, exploiting them. Yes, exploitation is so high, and it's like, it's so sad. So like this, when I read this article, I was like, oh, it speaks a lot of what it said. I could understand their viewpoint, the writer's viewpoint, and what they were saying, and how modesty kind of is just has a discretion in a way that kind of protects and shields from exploitation. I know if you're in church, or if you've ever been in church and you heard, what is it when they say like, don't cause another one to stumble and fall, and they usually use it for women on how they dress, and they say like, oh, that's suggestive dressing, or if that skirt's too tight, or if that shirt's too low, or if I can see more of your ankle, or I can see some of your knee, that's gonna cause a man in the church to stumble, right? Because he doesn't have self-control over his own sexual appetite. or even over his lust. And so this article really talked in regards to how kind of modesty has that discretion and also reservation and kind of like protection against exploitation and against unsuggested or suggested sin and sexual behavior. And so the overview that came from this was saying that modesty is a virtue. So all of the sources have confirmed that modesty is a virtue, right? It's a unique virtue. This article believes that modesty is a virtue necessary for purity. It flows out of the virtues of temperance, chastity, self-control. A modest person dresses, speaks, and acts in a manner that supports and encourages purity and chastity, and not in a manner that would tempt or encourage sinful sexual behavior. Modesty protects the mystery of the person in order to avoid exploiting the other. This attitude instilled in us the patience and reserve we need for avoiding unbecoming behavior. Modest relationships reflect the connection between the marital state and sexual behavior. Modest behavior respects the boundaries of intimacy that are embedded in our natures by the natural law and the principles of sexual behavior laid out in the divine revelation. Modesty ensures and supports purity of heart, a gift that enables us to see God's plan for personal relationships, sexuality, and marriage. So again, this is their view on modesty and what that looks like in relationships, sexuality, marriage, and also in culture. With some of what was said, again, there are going to be views, whether you're in agreement or not in agreement. Modesty is a virtue that is necessary for purity. However, I will break that down in later videos because I think when people throw that out there, it's to condemn and to say what is pure and what's not pure. And we actually don't, like, we have no authority to judge what's pure and unpure, right? God sets the tone of what's pure and what's unpure, and we follow his laws and what he's already judged and deemed as pure and unpure. So I think that's also a thing when it comes to discussing why modesty is necessary, why modesty and purity go together, but it's not in the sense in what people, religion, society has deemed the connection. It's vastly different. And so we'll get into that later because that's a whole video within itself. And today we're just scratching the surface. Okay, so you've heard from philosophers, right? Top philosophers of this world. You've heard from bloggers who may or may not have a psychology degree, but have been in that field in industry. You've heard from a representative that represents I'm not sure of the denomination, but represents a church. Like, so you've heard all of these not opposing, but you've heard all these different views surrounding modesty, what it is, what they deem it is, how they deem it necessary to be used in life. However, I believe you have to hear from the source, which is God, his perspective on modesty, and what it is. All these other views, great. Awesome. However, the source, the creator of all creations, like, that's who you need to know, what modesty meant for him and how he created it. I will reiterate for those that might have just popped in, I will be starting there's several series that I will be starting, and one of them is called the Origin series. And the Origin series will actually take a deep dive, and we'll start at the beginning, which is Genesis, and we'll take a deep dive throughout history and how modesty has formed socially. But in that first teaching that is called the Genesis, I will go more in depth about how God created modesty, why he created it, like how it was formed, what it looked like, all those things like that. So this is just going to be these are the words that I was given when I was praying about this fashion brand, and I was praying when God dropped it in my spirit, like, yeah, you're going to have a fashion brand, but it's not going to be what you want it to be. Like, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. And so when he gave me, we're redefining modesty, I was like, well, what does that mean? Because I don't understand. And then I think it was late at night, one night, early in the morning, this is what he gave me. So modesty is your character, right? And what he said is that modesty is a tool, but it's also a container. So you think about a tool as like something that's useful. Like think about if you wanted to, like those shelves from IKEA that everyone gets, right? When they want to build their own wardrobe, or they want to build their desk, or assemble, even assembling their desk, assembling whatever, right? You need tools. It's something that's useful, that you need while like in the process of either building, assembling, or constructing something. And then he revealed that it's also a container. Now, think about a container, right? What do you put in containers? I know when I had containers, especially in my house, I would put dry goods in there. Like, I would just put all things, like some of the things that may have been junk to other people, but like memories that I wanted to hold on to, I'd put it in a container. That way it's safe, right? All of the elements and things that are in the container are then now safe from the atmospheres, and the environment, right? So they wouldn't get ruined, they wouldn't get smashed, they wouldn't get any water damage, like things like that, right? And a container contains it. And so you have to think of modesty in those aspects. It's a tool that's used, right? That's necessary for building. So building up yourself, right? Your character, it's part of your character. And so with your character, you hear about character development, right? You're building your character or rebuilding your character. So it's a necessary tool in that, right? Of building the things that you need. We need self-control. We need kindness, like all the fruits of the Spirit. And then it's also a container. So now it holds. So she said organized safekeeping. Absolutely. Safekeeping. So now modesty is also a container, right? That holds all of the things that you're building within your character. All those virtues of kindness, love. They all need to be stored somewhere. They all need to be stored somewhere. So all of that is being stored in the container of modesty. So it's a container that holds all of what flows out of it. So modesty is very intrinsic. Like, it has nothing to do with their outside. The outside is a reflection of what's in the inside. Now, I know you hear, like, you are what you eat, right? How many times have you heard that, right? You are what you eat, right? Everything that you ingest and the inside, you become, right? You show. And so it's the same thing. Everything that's within that container of modesty, right? It flows out of it. And so whatever you have in that container is who you are. So if you don't have self-control, your life is going to show that. If you don't have patience, your life is going to show that. If you aren't kind, right? If you aren't loving, your life is going to show that. Because it's not in that container, right? It's not in that container that's housed. So that's the illustration that I was given, right? And so he also said that it takes root and digs deep to reveal the intentions behind you dress. So people just automatically, when they look at you, right? And I get it, because you're visual and things like that. However, I think we allow our eyes to deceive us a lot more than they should at this point, because we all know that like when I say you can't judge a book by its cover, right? I know for me, like, I read books. When I was in school this past couple years, I didn't read books because I was already reading enough accounting books. I didn't want to read another book. But now that I'm not in school, I'm reading books again. And so I know that sometimes when I look at the cover books, I'm like, I don't want to read that. But then the moment I open it and scroll a couple pages, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is real good, right? It's the same thing. You cannot judge a book by its cover. The same thing with people. Like, when you look at people, you can't just say, oh, well, you look like that, so that's who you are. Like, it's doing you a disservice, because you might miss out on your blessing, or you might miss out on, like, how that person may have been sent into your life. But then also, it doesn't help the person, because then you are using an assumption, which is an illusion and also a lie, to then treat someone how you think they should be treated based on what you deem or who you deem they are and their worth. You can't tell somebody their worth. We have no right or reason to judge and put worth on someone. Like, you can't do that. And so, yes, it digs to reveal the intention and how you dress. So someone says, oh, thank you, Godmom. Modesty is the icing on character and action. Yes, Pastor Williams. I love that. It is the icing. That's good. Ooh, that'll preach. Don't get me started. And so, yeah, we're talking about how you dress. So how you dress is, again, what's on the inside. And that could be a lot of things. I also feel like if you have trauma that you're healing from, things like that, that all plays a role in like how you show up, how you view yourself. And so I always tell people, like, don't beat yourself down when you are in that healing process from trauma or just things, and when you are really in the midst of character development, because I don't know if anyone has been through character development, but it's not nice. There ain't nothing cute about it. It hurts. It's annoying. You're ready to be happy again. Like, you're ready to feel normal again, or like, what is even feeling normal at this point? So like, don't beat yourself up about that. How you dress, how you present yourself, will evolve as you continue to evolve. He also said that it removes and frees you from thoughts and mindsets. And so a lot of times in society has a viewpoint on who you are and how you are, and just certain mindsets, right? It frees you from that. It allows you to think of yourself, like to know yourself and to think freely without those distractions and mindsets. Because you know how sometimes you're like, if you want to do something, right? Like for me, I love solo travel. Girl, if I could, I would hop on a plane right now. Like, red-eye flight me somewhere out the country, right? But when I first started traveling, I knew that I couldn't tell, like, my mama. I knew I couldn't tell people around me because, like, they just had, like, a fear of, oh, you're going by yourself. And even though my older sister had been living out in Saudi Arabia, was a nurse out there, like, you know, just living life on the edge. Like, you know when you can tell people certain things, or when you can't, because you know they're going to have certain thoughts and perspectives and mindsets around certain things, so you try to like keep it under wraps. It's kind of like that, where the tool of modesty, it removes all of that. It removes it, so like their thoughts, their opinions, their mindsets, like it doesn't impact you. It doesn't make you feel or even second guess who you are or what you're called to do, or like, you know, like just how you're showing up in the world. And then it also relates to suggestive or revealing clothing. I believe that is a personal journey. And I think sometimes people think, especially in the church, and I can say that because I've grown up Kojic all my life, okay? That's all I know. I mean, I've been to other denominations within, like, under the Christianity umbrella. However, I've known Kojic most of my life because that's what I was born into. And so I think sometimes when you see people coming back into church, right, getting back into the groove of being church, getting back into like Bible study and getting in their word, they sometimes often feel like your dress should automatically change, and it should reveal the newness that has happened and maybe happened on the inside of them. It should automatically show. However, through what I've seen, and then also just even in my own development, that is not always the case. It is a case-by-case basis, where some people might show up in a way that's more acceptable faster or sooner than others. I do believe like it's all about what's going on the inside, and God knows that, and so he will guide you through that, and so that journey may not always look like other people. I never really had an issue with suggestive or revealing clothing because I've always been modest, I would say, in my clothing. I've always experienced with color and things like that. And I know that in some religions and in some sections of society, color is out of the question, right? Like, you couldn't go to church with a red lip. Like, you was not modest, right? You was a prostitute. You was a lady of the night. So I do know that some of those mindsets and thoughts towards modesty is very narrow. It's very black and white. However, There is a revealing and there is a process with that. And so a couple other points, it says, he said that it reveals to you, how did I even write this? Reveals to you society. So I don't even know how I wrote this. It doesn't make sense to me right now, but it allows you to really capture the essence of who you are. for you to show up in a distinctive way. So everyone is made different. And I know that we say that, but I think sometimes we forget, like, no, everyone is really different. Like, everyone, like, personalities, all that, like, their isms and schisms about them is very different, and it's very unique to how God built them, right? And so it allows you to know the essence of who you are and how you were really created. Even like in revealing, I know my pastor, which he's on here, had talked about on Sunday of, like, you know, a lot of the personality traits and things that we deem as our personality is not really, you know, the personality that God wants us to have. Is just something that, you know, through environment, through life, that maybe we took on. So it just, it captures the essence of who you are and shows you who you are, and like the distinction of that and what that looks like. And that could be in your own way. And so it also has the intention to set apart. So it's meant to set you apart. You're not supposed to look like everyone else. You're not supposed to act and do things in the way in which other people may be doing it in society. Like, the intention of modesty is to set you apart, right? Is to show that you're different. And it's definitely different from what society has accepted and deemed normal. And so you will look like an outcast. You will be called all kind of names. Like, it's like, that was the point, to say, like, no, you are different. You are called to something different. And so when sometimes you hear in society or in organizations and just different things, and even at jobs, where it's like, oh no, we all do this, we all talk this way, we all look this way, we all dress this way. Because I know in corporate there was a dress code. Like, it was something that was very indirect and wasn't said out loud, but if you had common sense, common sense told you, like, you can't wear that, you can't do that, you know what I mean? Like, we all dress a certain way. So for you, if you want to fit in here, if you want the elevation, if you want the things that you want, you need to align with this structure. So it didn't leave room for originality. It didn't leave room for authenticity. Like, you all followed the same script, right? And that's not what modesty is. So in places and spaces and within society that uses that lie, because it's a manipulation tactic that's used to subject people to two forms within society, good or bad, right? So even with modesty, you see, like, oh, you're showing a little more ankle today than usual, like, you're immodest, which is bad, right? And so you'll see in society too, where there's always those two factors of where you fall in line. So if you fall in line with the rules and the constructs within whatever company or whatever organization you're in, then you're good, right? You're compliant, right? You're complacent. However, if you don't, then you're bad. So you'll always see those two manipulation tactic, and that is what modesty is not. That's what people try to use the tool of modesty is to conform. And that's when you get into what people say about policing women's bodies, policing bodies in general, and feeling imprisoned and all those things like that, because it's a manipulation tactic. Also, something that I know this is going to be controversial. However, I'm just going to say it because the Lord told me to say it. Modesty cannot be constrained. It cannot be tied down to a box or compartmentalized for your understanding. I'll just say that again. Modesty cannot be constrained. It cannot be tied down to or fit within a box or compartmentalized for your understanding. It's multifaceted, and that it can take on and be expressed in various ways, right? I know that that is definitely controversial, because when you hear about modesty, that it's a no-go. Like, it looks like this. It's this thing, but it was not created for it to be compartmentalized. It was not created for it to just fit within this box of comfort. It was not meant to be something that only that you can rely on for just your understanding. That's not the point of it, because who gave it to us? The source that gave it to us wants us to understand it, but not within just our own understanding. And we have a very limited understanding because we're human. You know what I mean? It's a spiritual concept. And so with that, you need a different type of understanding, and vision for it. And yes, it's multifaceted, so it will look different. Since everyone is different, everyone is created different, it is going to look different. So if you see so-and-so moving in this way, dressing in this way, you can't condemn them, because that is their form of modesty, especially if they're doing it with the source, which is God. God the Father, the Creator, His Son, Jesus Christ. I just want to put that out there, because I know a lot of people call different things God and Lord. So I just want to make that clear. If it's done with God, the Creator, it will look different, and it won't look like it won't look like the next person. It is specifically created, curated perfectly for you. And so it is multifaceted. And it takes on such an expression, based on the level of freedom you allow it, and also like your faith in it. Because I think with being modest, you have to really believe it. And in believing it, it's almost like you have to surrender. Like, it's a surrenderance. It is a surrenderance. And in surrendering, you're allowing yourself to be free, not confined to what the world has taken it as, but really in the discretion in the full container in which God created it to be. Let's see what it says. Pastor William says modesty is different because of the type of spirit it starts from. Yes, that's exactly it. Yes. So if done in the right spirit, it's going to look absolutely different. Like, it will have a different feel. It'll have a different glow. Like, everything about it is just, ooh, like, you know, it's almost like, ooh, what's that? Like, how did you, like, it's captivating. Like, that's the word I keep hearing. Like, it's captivating. It's captivating. Cherie says people understand at different maturity levels that can be based on their cognitive experience. God helps people develop how He wants it to be. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I think once you fully surrender and let go of all of the distractions and the jargon and things, and once you fully surrender to it, you really find out like how dynamic and how different, but like how beautiful it really is. And like, you really begin to see yourself in a different light. And you also can see like, wow, I was so deceived. But once you come into that awareness, it's a beautiful thing. And then lastly, modesty, again, is an intrinsic value that is then expressed outwardly through the expression of style, which is cultivated by your creativity. And I know a lot of people don't think that they're creative, but creativity is so vast as well. Creativity is multifaceted. It's the same as modesty. It's captivating. It's expressed in so many different ways. Like, the expression of creativity is so vast. And so that is bringing, or I would say merging, what modesty is and what it looks like in terms of clothes. And so that's also something as to why I'm taking my time in developing this brand, because I want it to have that outward expression that's cultivated by the creativity that God has given me, to then help people and help women, help men, help children, help teens, young adults, like help them really see themselves. And I think that sometimes people think that, oh, clothes, makeup, and things like that, those are vain. Absolutely. However, sometimes a lot of the self-discovery and things like that, for most people, don't happen in a classroom, doesn't happen in a church, doesn't happen in those spaces and places to where they might be hearing the information. Sometimes they have to experience it. And I don't know about you, but whenever I find a nice pair of jeans or some shoe, ooh, don't let it be some shoes, or a cute bag, oh, it's on, like, it's not even, I won't say that I take on a different attitude, but like, there's such a, like, my shoulder, you know what I mean? Like, I don't slouch, like, I'm like, it just gives that. And I think that is what God wants this fashion brand to be, is to give people that, because sometimes in life people have been beaten down, and so sometimes you just need that. For some people, they just need that oomph, and that can come by clothes, that can come by, you know, makeup, or that can come by an expression outside of, you know, just lectures and reading. Yes, Catherine, it gives confidence. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. And it makes you feel like, oh, girl, like, I'm unstoppable today. Like, everything I have on my list, I'm gonna get it done. Like, everything I set out to do today, I'm gonna do it. It makes it, the confidence that it gives you, just, yes. So just to do an overview, so modesty is an intrinsic value that has an outward expression, and that's where the clothes come in at. It aligns with the saying that says, if you're ugly on the inside, you're going to be ugly on the outside. And though superficially you might not necessarily be ugly, there will be attributes of you that are very ugly, right? Not only is it an intrinsic value, it's a tool and a container. So it's a tool to kind of help build, assemble, reconstruct, and then it's the container that confines, and like, what did Sherry say? I liked what you said earlier about it. Safekeeping, right? Keep things organized. And then it also has a big impact on your value, your lifestyle, your mindset, all of those things as you're finding and going through your journey of modesty. And really, again, it's all about your character. It's a deeper dive into character development. So as you're going on your journey of that, your lifestyle, your mindset, your value, how you view yourself, how you view others, like your language, how you talk, how you speak, how you walk, all of those things change, right? Yep, so that outward expression is not only through what you wear, it's how you speak, how you think, how you handle situations, and then also how you handle everyone else around you. The style or the fashion part is more just of the creative expression, but it needs to thrive in authenticity. And that authenticity will then set you apart. So that is the conclusion of our teaching today about modesty and its true meaning. Thank you for everyone that, for your reactions, for your comments and engagement. I really appreciate this. It is definitely a little bit out of my comfort zone because I like to be in the background, making things happen. And I don't mind teaching. Almost dropped my iPad. I don't mind teaching, however, I love being in the background. However, I have been called to the front, and so I must do what I have been called to do. This was the first teaching. Again, you can catch every Wednesday There will be another teaching on another topic. We will get and dive more into modesty, but then also the other things surrounding the socialization of modesty, society. We'll talk about fast fashion. We'll talk about deception, manipulation, and how all of those things play a part in how we view ourselves, whether we deem modesty as something that we align with, that curates and forms our views and perspectives around modesty, and or just people, ourselves, how we view the world. There is a lot of deception going on, and the Lord has asked me to reveal it, and so I will be revealing that. And each teaching will always have and be kind of catered to fashion, but it's not just about fashion. But it will always have a reference point to fashion because we are a fashion brand. And I believe that for those that just come for the fashion part or for the clothes, we want to still be able to have certain bits of information that they can pull from too, as they're even deciding if this is something that they align with. Catherine says, let me know when your fashion line comes out. Yes. You'll see more posts on this social media. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's KaychaC, so KayChac. You can follow me on Instagram as well. You'll see more content posted on there. And with the content posted, you'll know like when the fashion line is ready and things like that, because I'll be doing a behind the scenes, so you'll be able to see like the process on how each garment is formed and created, and the sourcing, and like I want to take you through that whole process to show you like how and what it all entails to like have a fashion brand, because I know people think like, oh, you can just sew clothes, but there's there's so much more. So professionally executed. Oh, thank you, Grandma. So happy you could join. But yes, thank you guys so much. I will leave this here on the YouTube, and then you can also check out my YouTube channel, because all of these teachings will then be posted there if you want somewhere to also refer back to or look at other content that's on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel name is NekaychaCavil. It is I'll spell it for you. NekaychaCha. Last name is CAV as in Victor, IL as in Larry. You can follow and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. But these teachings will be uploaded there, as well as other content and or random videos that I post. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Wednesday. Bye.